So welcome. This is probably one of my most favorite workshops to do because it's the American dream, right? Home ownership, all that fun stuff.
Yes.
I know that it was one of the things that I was most proud when I bought my first home. So we're going to go through a lot of stuff. A couple of quick things. Always as a disclaimer, I like to let people know I'm not a licensed real estate agent. I'm not a certified tax accountant. So this is going to be like general knowledge stuff for you to go and do some additional research. Buying a home is one of the larger steps in your life. So the first thing you should be asking yourself is this question: am I ready to own a home? Do I buy or do I rent? This is a deeply personal question. One of the things that I always like to tell people that is that home ownership is not for the faint of heart. There's going to be things that happen owning a home that you just can't even fathom. What happens? You go in the basement doing laundry and all of a sudden the sewer is backing up. You know? Yeah, I know, right? What happens when you are in an established neighborhood and you're owning a home and all of a sudden a neighbor that you really don't like moves in? You know, there's a whole host of things that can happen. But there's also great benefits. Numerous studies have shown that owning a home is the number one way to pass down wealth in families, legacy. It is proven. There's been some things that I won't get into the politics of it that have prohibited a lot of people from being homeowners. One of the things I also like to ask people is, what's your situation? Are you setting down roots, right? Are you going to be in Kenosha, southeast Wisconsin for the next 5-10 years, or are you just passing through? You know, so those are all kind of the questions that you should be asking yourself when you're ready. Also, one of the things to think about is, what's your aptitude for work? Raking leaves, snow blowing, right? Getting up on a ladder, cleaning out the gutters. If you have no idea what the difference between a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver is, yes, there's YouTube, but those are all things that, yes, you don't actually need to be a certified carpenter to own a home, but if you struggle with changing light bulbs, again, all things you should think about. Some people have some concerns, mainly uncertainty or the fear about the purchase process. I'm sure if I asked you all in the audience, you probably say, I have a horror story. My aunt, sister, uncle had a horrible time buying their house. There's horror stories out there all the time. Not knowing if you can qualify. People will think, maybe it is a little challenge for me. Maybe I've had some credit struggles in my life. Maybe I can't really afford the maintenance on a home. I don't even know what all the qualifications are. Down payment is really, really important. There are a lot of programs out there, which I'll get into in a little bit, but just having a good emergency fund ready to go, I really think is a good test. If you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved up, then I'm leaning more towards you're ready for home ownership. Poor credit or no credit, some people aren't on top of their credit, and so you want to definitely make sure that you have your credit in order if you're going to be purchasing a home. Some people think about citizenship requirements. Do I have to be a U.S. citizen to purchase in the area? There's some papers up here for your friends. And then language barriers. Again, this is a huge, huge step for most people. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable in knowing what you're signing and knowing the contracts and knowing what you get into. So there's some benefits of renting a home, right? Free repairs, right? You can call somebody else. Hey, the hot water heater's not working. Something's backed up, so there's no commitment to staying into one place. So if you are somebody that you enjoy the being able to pick up and leave whenever you want, or pick up and leave every 6 months to a year, that can be very empowering for some people. But there's no homeowner's insurance or taxes when you're renting too. One of the things we know is taxes can be really impactful when you're owning a home, and they never ever stay low. They're always going up. So there are definitely some benefits to renting a home. Benefits of home ownership. There's a bunch of tax deductions that you can take when you are owning a home. The power of just your autonomy, right? Like, this is my space. I own this slice of the universe, right? I can paint the walls bright pink if I want, right? I can play my music at 2 a.m. whenever I want. Usually the money will appreciate. Usually the value of a home appreciates. We're going through a big surge again right now. One of my friends recently asked me, are we in a bubble again? I'm not quite there yet. And I'll explain why in a little bit. And then we talked about the inheritance as well, passing that legacy on to the next generation. The reason that I don't think that we're really in, and again, I'm not an economist, I don't really think that we're in the same bubble we were in back in 2007 and 2008, for the simple reason that interest rates haven't come down quite enough yet. There's a ton of people right now, I think I heard it on a podcast recently, that they're overhoused. You've heard of underhoused, right? Like people, there's not enough housing in the area, but there's actually a situation that's developing where there's overhoused. So think about that couple that has 2 or 3 kids that are grown, 30, 40-year-olds, and they're still living in the family home. 3, 4-bedroom home, that couple doesn't need a 3, 4-bedroom home anymore, right? But they don't want to sell because they don't want to pay 6% now for a mortgage because interest rates are so high. So a few years ago, interest rates were super low, so you could be a little bit more choosy with where you're leaving. But now people are thinking, man, I don't want to sell and have to take a mortgage out again, and I'm paying 6%. So I'm not quite sure we're in a bubble just yet. Do I qualify? What should my budget be? There's a ton of resources online. Educators Credit Union, our Bonsai Direct, actually has some coaches and some articles for you to read on. Consult a professional to determine your income, expenses, and creditworthiness. This is going to be your mortgage officer. One of the things that I really encourage people to do is talk to your primary financial institution. And what I mean by that is, where does your money get direct deposited? Where does your payroll go? That's where you should start thinking about having a conversation with them. Do they offer mortgages, right? Is that something that they offer? They might have professionals on staff that can help you with that, because you definitely want to make sure you're qualifying for that mortgage. It's a really tight market out there right now. There's many people that are paying over market price, which we'll get to in a little bit. Please make sure you review your credit report. I encourage you to review all 3 of your credit reports. You can get that at annualcreditreport.com. That is a really good way, because when you're getting a mortgage, they're going to do what's called a tri-merge. They're going to look at all 3 of your credit bureaus just to make sure that they're not missing anything that might be on one that's not on the other. Determine a budget. How much can you afford each month for home ownership? Sadly, one of the things that happened during the big bubble, the last market inflection, was there was a ton of people that seen that they could own a home for about the same amount of money they were renting for. So they were renting for like $850, $950 a month, and the mortgage rates were really low, especially if you did an adjustable rate mortgage, and you could get into a home for about $850, $950 a month. But they weren't ready to be homeowners, and they did not understand about taxes, about repairs, about insurance. What happens when the interest rates change, and now you're at 2.5% in the beginning, and then it ballooned up to 6%. So now your payment was $850. Now you're looking at, maybe $1,250. So those swing. So really determine a budget, and then help compare loan programs. So sometimes municipalities will have first-time home buyer programs. So just make sure you're searching with different nonprofits that can help you as well. And they'll be able to explain the buying of a home and what to expect with each stage of the timeline. We'll go into that in a little bit. And then they'll determine if you can get pre-approved for a home. So I'm going to talk next about some of the things you're going to need to get this pre-approval process. So you're going to need your last 2 pay stubs or benefit statements or awards letter if you have recently secured a new job. Last 2 years of your W-2s, if required, federal taxes, with all schedules for all the borrowers that are involved. This is why I tell you to look to your primary financial institution, because many times they'll have this documentation and they can pull it up easy. But if you're not going with your primary, they're going to want to see the last 3 months of your bank statements. They're also going to want to look at your investment statements, including mutual funds, stocks, annuities, retirement, pension, 401ks. So basically, they want a complete picture about you. If you're currently renting, they may ask for your landlord's name, address, phone number for the previous 2 years. And if you are in a divorce situation, they want to make sure that they're going to take a look at that divorce decree. Don't want anybody sneaking in on a mortgage. So mortgage lenders, definitely they consider your credit history. They consider how much you can have in disposable income or how much money can actually fund this purchase. And then what is your down payment? I recommend that you have between 15 and 20% down as your down payment. We do have a first-time homebuyers program at Educators that'll get you down to 5%, but it really shows you have some skin in the game if you're willing to come up with 20% down for a down payment on a home. Also, when you're thinking about this, your credit history, as I said, get the tri-merge. These are the 3 major credit bureaus that are out there. They just basically talk about how you have paid others back in the past. Your credit file has your demographic information, any major delinquencies, credit accounts, and inquiries. One of the things that you really want to pay attention to, especially if you have any collections on your credit report, that is a no-go in most situations when you're applying for a mortgage. So most people will have maybe a medical collection or something out there. Just make sure that you are putting your best foot forward, your best credit life forward, and make sure you're reviewing all of that information. Also, you should really have a good credit mix, is what we call it. So when the lenders are looking at your credit file, and all we see is the only thing that you've ever had in your credit life, maybe you're at a 760, but all you have is a Quick Trip card, that's the only thing you've ever paid on in your life, they're probably going to shy away. Having a good mix, a car note, maybe a loan for a signature loan, maybe a couple credit cards, maybe some student loan positive payment. They want to know that you're comfortable making payments, not just to one different lender. Make sure you clean up any inaccuracies that are out there. Maybe there was a collection that wasn't yours. Maybe you had insurance, but the healthcare provider didn't file it correctly, and now it showed up as a collection, and you paid it a long time ago and you got it off your back, but it's still on your credit report. So make sure you're cleaning up your credit report. Credit report the positive information stays on there for a while. So here's some information and some stats, how long stuff stays on there. So that's why I say it's important to take some good time. Accounts in good standings will stay on there for 10 years. Foreclosures or any repossessions will stay on there for 7 years. Chapter 7 and 13 will stay on there for a whopping 10 years. Unpaid tax liens, so if you have some tax liens out there and they're not paid, they will stay out there indefinitely until they are paid. Delinquencies, 4 years from the last payment, so this is if you were late on a credit card or a car note or anything. And collections will be 7 years from the date the original creditor sent the file to collections. One of the things to help improve the score is develop a budget, pay off your collections or judgments immediately, get and stay current on your bills and obligations. Please make sure you avoid maxing out revolving cards and lines of credit. That's called percent of usage. Good rule of thumb is that you want your credit cards to be under one third of your available balance. So if you have a $1,000 credit card is your limit, keep it under $300, folks. Avoid the balance transfer game. I've seen so many people do this. They rack up a credit card, all of a sudden the introductory period ends and they transfer it over to a 0%, and then they keep transferring. That can be very dangerous, and you can see that pattern. A good loan officer will see that pattern in your credit history. Limit credit inquiries only to what is absolutely necessary. Also, please make sure that you're closing out or you're looking at anything that might not be relevant any longer on your report. Mistakes in credit report or should I contact the credit company? What you want to do is you want to, if you hear one of those stories where they're like, oh, for $450, we'll increase your credit score by 300 points. A lot of what they're doing for you, you can do yourself. So just be really, really weary of engaging with those credit agencies. If you do see a mistake on your credit report, you report it right to the credit reporting agency. Don't go to the original creditor. They won't be able to help you out as quickly as the credit reporting agency, the TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. You report the error to them. They go back to the creditors themselves, and then they have 60 days to determine if that should be on your report or not. If they can't prove that it needs to be on your report, it should be removed from your report. Your budget. Be honest with yourself, folks. And when I say this, I don't know what happened to Americans over the last 20 or 30 years, but everybody thinks that your first home needs to be 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, 2-car garage, and if you're really just starting off with a starter home, you should be in a starter home. 2 bedrooms, modest beginnings. You can always move up from there. Be realistic. Understand, do some calculations. There's a ton of calculators out there where you'll be able to easily figure out what does a $150,000 mortgage payment look like with taxes and insurance. Look at that number, figure that out. Be flexible. And if you're in a cohabitation situation, come up with your no-goes. What I'm talking about is, I absolutely positively cannot live in a yellow house. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Right? Or it has to positively be in this school district. I want my kids to walk to this school. Be flexible. That's why I say come up with the no-goes, and then everything else is negotiable for there. Be prepared. Again, this is a very, very big purchase for most people. Most people are in their homes for quite some time. There can be some cash that can be required to close. Again, there's anywhere between 3 and 25% required down payments. Amount is usually dictated by the loan program you choose. Closing costs can depend on the program. There can be escrow, there can be homeowners insurance that you have to pay. And then I talked about these already after the closing. There's maintenance, there's utilities, there's property upkeep, mortgage payment protection, monthly premiums. One of the things that I really recommend for people to do, especially in Wisconsin, if you call We Energies and give them the address of a property, they'll tell you what the average energy cost is for that property. And we know there's a lot of old homes here, right? So if you go in and you think that, oh, this seems nice, and you're in the spring, and it's got an older furnace that, it still works, right? But if their gas and light bill in the mid of winter is $340, that's really going to play a big, big role in your determination of that particular home. Like I said, repairs and maintenance are just one of those things that comes with owning a home, and you want to make sure you keep up on it. There's a lot of municipalities now that have, I'm from Racine and I can't think of the name of it. I want to say Neighborhood Watch, but that's not it. I think it's like Community Safety or something, but it's somebody that just goes around. And if you have like chip paint on your house, they're like giving you a letter, like you got to fix this. So just make sure that you're ready for that type. So there's pre-approval versus pre-qualified versus pre-approved. Pre-qualified, same day letter typically are pre-qualifications. These are not pre-approvals. These are just saying that, hey, at first blush, just taking a glance at what you have going on, you're kind of pre-qualified. You're in a good position to get pre-approved for a mortgage. It's not a pre-approval. Does not require any substantiation of information, right? They can just look at your credit report and maybe look at your pay stub and say, okay, you're maybe on the right track. Pre-approval is a formal application, full credit, reviewed by underwriter, usually takes 1 to 3 business days. Documentation is not required, makes pre-approval time more complete with less conditions in submitting documentation. But the pre-approval gives you buying confidence, narrows down monthly payments, loan requirements, and strengthens your offer. There are a ton of websites. Zillow is one of them out there. Just get an idea what's in the market, folks, right? Like, see what neighborhood is spending, how much the homes are going for in that area. And that is really going to help you when you determine how much you want to get pre-approved for. I encourage you just to drive around on some Sundays and see what neighborhoods have more homes for sale and look and see which house is going to speak to you. There's a couple different financing options that are out there and are available. There's fixed rate versus the adjustable rate mortgage. There's government loans versus conventional loans. So a fixed rate, kind of self-explanatory, as it says, you'll be paying the exact same rate over the life of the loan. Most common is a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Sometimes there's a 15-year, sometimes there's a 10-year, versus the other one, which is an adjustable rate mortgage. Usually most adjustable rate mortgages start off at the 5-year, but they can also be 1 year. What that means is that that rate is fixed for that set period of time, either 1 to 5 years. At the end of that period, the rate can adjust based on what the market is doing. Just make sure you understand which product you're getting into. Right now, an adjustable rate might be better because we're projecting, the Fed just released, inflation is kind of being a little stubborn still, so they're not going to lower interest rates in the near future. Stock market is reacting as it does. Might be a good time for an adjustable rate, because fixed rate mortgages right now are about 5 to 6%. So when I refinanced my home, we did that about 4 years ago now. It was a really low interest rate. I mean, super low. I was like, we're getting in on this. We can eat ramen for a while. I don't care. We're going to get that low interest rate. And we're in that situation. Our house is a little big for us, but we're fine. I'm fine with that low mortgage rate, mortgage rate right now. See if you qualify for any government loans or programs. If you're receiving benefits from the VA or anything along those lines, reach out to those individuals and say, are there any special programs? One of the things to bear in mind, though, when you do that, there's the Federal Housing Administration. There might be a couple more hoops that you have to jump through if they're providing the funding. It may be something like there has to be lead abatement proven. A lot of times, a lot of the older homes in southeast Wisconsin had lead paint. That was just one of the things they did back then. Some of those programs dictate what you have to do. So just make sure you understand all of the intricacies with the loan that you're going to be going with. I recommend that you find a real estate agent that you like and that you're comfortable with. This really is going to help you out. Agents make their living by matching home buyers with sellers. They can save you a lot of time and money. Going back to my earlier example, if you positively, absolutely know you don't want a yellow house, your agent won't show you a yellow house. They will show you that you don't want a house in certain areas. They'll save you a lot of time and money. The average first-time home buyer is going to look at about 25 different properties before they make the decision. So I really encourage you to look at an agent that can help you do that. Narrows down homes in a price range that fits your needs. So they're not going to show you things that are out of your price range, right? There's nothing worse than, not knowing how much something costs. You fall in love with it and you're like, I can't afford that anyways. Helps with the amount of the offer on the home. Most times, home prices can be negotiable. So you want to think about that. They'll know the area the best. They can help you write a really, really solid offer on the home. They can help you assist in submitting the offer to the person you're going to be buying the home from. And they also come sometimes with some home inspections and warranties. So a home warranty, it's kind of like most other warranties. Consider the age of the home you're purchasing. Consider if you see any major repairs that have been done recently, or there have not been any repairs done recently. Just know what you're getting into. You do not want to buy somebody else's problem. So here's some things that it kind of goes without saying, but being a loan officer for many years at the credit union, you'd be amazed at what people try to buy. It must be livable, right? You can't just buy a dilapidated old house that nobody's lived in forever. Walls, fixtures, roof, and in good repair. There should be no structural damage. You want to make sure that you're looking at the foundation, walls, all that stuff. Must be up to code with electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. One of my homes, I have my primary residence, and then we have 2 rental properties. One of my rental properties that I bought, and I'm going old school. Some of you will remember this, and some of you won't. Remember the old fuses? Yes, yeah, it had that funny smell, right, when something went wrong. That's not up to code any longer. I did not know this. I bought the home. My insurance agent said, "Oh, I see here on the inspection you still have tube." I don't know what they're called. I think they're called tube fuses. They're like, "We're going to insure you for 6 months, and then after that, if you don't have the electrical replaced, we're not going to insure the home anymore." I was like, "Oh, okay." So make sure you're up on all of that. Foreclosures and short sale purchases are okay. There's not too many of those going on right now, but basically what that means is that either the bank or credit union has foreclosed on the property, meaning the prior owners couldn't satisfy their obligations, so they've taken possession of it, and you might be able to get some good deals. Generally, what I found in that situation, though, is that it can be challenging, right? Because you think about that, somebody had to give up their home. And you've all heard the horror stories where people pouring cement down the sinks, and oh yeah, there's been some really bad. I've gone through a couple foreclosures of the credit union, and they don't treat the property nice towards the end. Also, beware of non-conforming properties. So these are kind of those really weird properties that maybe it was a storefront that they turned into a home. Maybe it was an old school or an old shop, just those ones that are a little bit not the normal house that you think of. The reason that I say that, and it's going to come up a little bit later on, is you're going to have a hard time when you get to the appraisal area, when somebody actually comes in and says how much the value of the property is. If it's a weird home, they got to be able to find what's called comparables in the market. And if there's nothing like your home in the market, how are they going to compare it, right? Great example, there's a restaurant in Racine. It was known as a high-end restaurant for many, many years. They ended up folding. The family sold it, but the person that bought it turned it into his home. And it's a lovely home. I've been there for dinner. It looks absolutely amazing, but there's nothing else like it in Racine. So when he goes to get an appraisal on his property, there's nothing to compare it to. So it's really challenging for him to come up with a good value on his property. If a radon test is required, must pass EPA required levels. Home inspections are not required, but are strongly recommended. What a home inspection is it's a certified professional that'll come in and check everything out. They'll make sure the electrical is up to code. They'll make sure that the furnace is up to code. They'll look at the roof and see and make sure there's not 3 layers of shingles underneath there. So I really encourage you to have a home inspection done. The home that we currently are in right now, we had a home inspection done, and the inspector found a crack. It was a little tiny crack in the heat exchanger of the furnace. Wasn't dangerous, wasn't leaking CO2, but it could have developed into a larger problem. So when we wrote our offer, we said, "Hey seller, you got to fix that furnace because the inspector found that." That's going to be your leverage point, right? So make sure you have an inspection done on the home. I'll tell you why inspections and appraisals are a little bit different. So between pre-approval and a closing, so here's your timeline. You've talked, you know what your budget is going to be. You're all good with that. You know how much you can actually afford. Don't miss any payments on any existing credit cards, because that'll definitely show up, because usually what ends up happening is right before you close, they will pull another credit report on you just to make sure that everything is as it was when you got pre-approved. I mean, folks, I know I have to put this up here, but don't quit or change your job, right? We don't like that. Don't take out any new credit or make any new larger purchases. I can't tell you, folks, how many times people just go change happy, right? They're like, I'm going to get a new car. When I'm going to get a new house. Choose one or the other, okay? And then wait it out. If you take on a new car payment, that changes the dynamics of how much you can afford to put towards this house, right? So if you didn't have a $500 car payment when you were pre-approved, and now you have a $500 car payment, you might not be able to pre-approved. Don't let anybody else pull your credit. Again, that could severely affect your ability to go for the loan. Don't co-sign any loans with anybody else, because again, these are all obligations that the original pre-approval did not take into consideration. I know it's super tempting. You're like, ooh, we're gonna get new sheets and new towels and a new stand mixer for our new house. Get all of that after you close. Don't go crazy and get excessive with your credit cards. All right, so here is a really good timeline for all of us. You want to buy a home, meet with a lender to review qualifications and apply for a pre-approval. Submit pre-approval letter to your real estate agent and begin your home search. So that step 2 kind of goes quick, but this is when you're gonna have to have all that documentation that I alluded to earlier, your W-2s, your pay stubs, all of that stuff, making sure your credit is clean so that they have all the information that they need. Many times they're gonna ask, who can I call at your job to verify your employment? Some places have a direct line for the HR department. You wanna make sure you're providing your loan officer or mortgage officer with all that information. They may come back with a couple questions for you, right? So be ready for that. Generally, pre-approval process for lending can take anywhere from 3 to 5 business days, so just be ready for that. Most approvals will be good for 30 or 60 days, depending on your lender. So now that you've gotten pre-approved, you can submit that letter to your real estate agent and begin your home search. I would really kind of have a really good idea of the top 3 styles of home you want, the top 3 neighborhoods that you want, so that you can have an informed conversation with your real estate agent. Some agents won't even talk to you until you have a pre-approval letter. That's entirely in their right? They're like, I'm not messing around showing you all these homes if you're not even pre-qualified or pre-approved for a home. Write an offer on a home within 90 days. I'm sorry, it's 90 days. I apologize. Usually the pre-approval is 90 days. Send a copy of the accepted offer and condition report to your lender. So what ends up happening is that once you have your pre-approval letter, you find the home that you really like, it's at the price range you want. This is where your real estate agent is going to help you submit an offer to purchase the home. And this is where you'd want to say, offer contingent on home passing the inspection. This is usually standard language in many of the offer letters that you will receive. It's such a competitive market right now that some buyers are like, nope, you're not looking at my home. You want to buy it or you don't. It's as is. So again, just be leery. You don't want to buy somebody else's problem. Send a copy of the accepted offer and condition report to your lender. This is what they're going to look at, and they'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb, make sure there's nothing in there that they need to worry about. It takes anywhere from 30 to 45 days. What happens next is that there's going to be an appraisal done on the property, which is completely different than the inspection. The appraisal, there are certified appraisers that are out there. What they do is they go into the market and they find what is called 3 comps or 3 comparable homes that are similar to your home within a mile or 2 radius that have sold recently. That's how they come up with the appraisal for your property. Now, what can happen at the appraisal is that, let's say that your offer was $200,000 for this home that you want. The appraiser comes in and says, yeah, that home is really only worth $150,000. The credit union or bank is only going to lend you based on the appraised value of the home. You're not going to be able to borrow $200,000 on a home that the appraiser said is only worth $150,000. So that's why it's really good to do your research. And in this market, there's a lot of times that people are paying above market price. They might be paying 20% above the asking price because it's such a hot market out there right now. Again, that 20% down as a down payment is helpful, or if you have other resources that you can add to the money that you're going to be contributing for that. One of the other things that I have seen some people do, it depends on what you feel about it. I've seen it work, I've seen it not work. Write a letter to the seller. Hey, my name is Joe Smith. I am a retired veteran. I mean, don't be dishonest, right? But just tell your story, because they're going to have a bunch of offers on the home, right? They want to know, a lot of people, their home is a very personal thing. They want to know who is getting their home after them. So make sure that could help your offer, right? It could or could. It can't hurt, right? Just something to say, hey, here's our situation. Please consider us. So the appraisal comes out, and they go through and make sure that it is worth what they're selling it for. Then there is what's called title work. It's called a title search on the property, and it's a title company. What that is doing is it's making sure that whomever is selling the home has the legal right to do so, and that there's no other legitimate claims against the property. Maybe there's some will out there that somebody's second cousin, twice removed, got half of the house, and they're on the title. That person has to sign off on the title before it can be sold. So that's what a title search does. Also, maybe the previous owners had some construction work done. Maybe they had a new roof put on. Maybe they added a bonus room, but they never paid the contractor. The contractor can put a lien against the property. So that's what the title search does. It makes sure that the house is available to be sold, there's no other encumbrances on it, and the people that are selling it have the right to do so. There's also going to be some funding that you may have to put in. Usually there is something called earnest money. If you're writing an offer, most real estate agents recommend that you put some money down to make sure that they know you're serious, right? They don't want to go through all these hoops and get all this stuff done, and then you're like, yeah, no, I kind of like that home. I don't know. Make sure that you're serious about that. Then they're going to do your employment verification. Please make sure that when they confirm the closing, you're going to need identification. They'll probably ask for your last pay stub. And then if you're bringing any money that you owe to the closing, it has to be certified funds. You can't roll up in there with your debit card or a personal check to do a closing. They want a cashier's check or some certified funds. So people that are going to be in the room. Sometimes this happens, sometimes this doesn't. It could be all done by the agent, but many times the buyers are there. The buyer's real estate agent is going to be there. Buyer's agent, Educators Credit Union processor will be there. The sellers are going to be there, the seller's real estate agent, and sometimes the title company and or attorney might be present at the closing as well. Just get an idea. I've seen a lot of people walk into a closing, and if you're not a people person and you walk in and you're dealing with a bunch of strangers and money, they kind of get kind of nervous. Hey, if that's your jam and you know that about yourself, just simply ask, hey, who's all going to be at the closing? You're within your right to ask that question so you know what to expect. Again, you want to be prepared for what you're walking into. So that'll be your closing process. Again, usually it's anywhere between 30 and 90 days for the whole process, but that is just kind of the lending piece of it. You should do a lot of your homework ahead of time. Again, researching different properties, researching different areas, different styles of homes. One of the things that's the rage right now is the laundry room on the second floor. Wouldn't that be nice? Right? It'd just be a lovely thing to have, right? Basements in the Midwest, they're kind of scary. So, one of the things that consider at closing, you may never ever see the seller. So ask about prior maintenance records and or if there's any warranties. Especially if you did the walkthrough and you notice there's new windows. Like, hey, is the warranty just for you? Is the warranty on the windows for the house? Because it might carry over. If there's a new furnace, is it for the house or is it just for the people that bought it? Ask those crazy questions like, when is garbage day? Right? When's recycling pickup? Another thing that you can do about the neighborhood is contact the local Police department, see if there have been any disturbance of the peace records called, right? Last thing you want to do is move into a neighborhood where it's just not the right fit for you and your family, right? Any specific questions about the home? How often do you change the furnaces? How often do you clean the gutters on your home? Are there any special things I need to know about cutting the grass? How often do you cut the grass? How old is that tree out back? Just all those kinds of questions about the home. Don't be super nitpicky though, right? You don't want to get, you don't want to offend anybody, but just be ready and have a list of kind of questions prepared for your sellers when you go. This is where you will sign the documents and finalize the closing statements and all the legal documents. You'll most likely have to have your ID with you. You'll be signing and it will be notarized by the notary. And then, congratulations, you are now a homeowner, right? It's I know it's kind of an easier process, but I like to leave some time, and I'm going to flip over to another presentation that I have as well that has a little bit more of kind of the loan stuff. But I just wanted to pause there and see how we're doing. I know that was a ton of information in a really, really short amount of time, and then just maybe ask, is anybody in the market right now, or are you just kind of feeling it out? Just kind of feeling it out, kind of getting the groundwork down. Okay, same for you all. Yeah. Okay. What about you folks? Yeah. Kind of right. If the right one comes across, yeah. Okay. What about you? Yeah, same thing. Okay. All right.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you know, what about the funds? I'm going back to page 3 when you were talking about the stubs, paycheck stubs,
yes,
things like that, and about the funds. Does it matter like work funds? Like, say for instance, it's a benefit you have through your work area. I don't know if you ever heard of thrift savings?
Yes.
Program.
Yes.
And they have different funds in there.
So you definitely want to make sure that you're disclosing all of the funds that are available for you. So that is, if you're going to be using that money for a down payment, one of the things that they want to know is that, and this is why they look for 3 months of your bank statements. So let's say they look back at the 3 months of your bank statements and you got a $25,000 deposit in the last 3 months into your savings account. They're going to question you and say, where did that $25,000 come from? And you have to prove where that $25,000 came from. Here's why, ladies and gentlemen. We want to make sure that you didn't borrow that $25,000 from your aunt and you have to pay that back at some point. Because if you do, then guess what? That's money that can't be used to satisfy your mortgage payment. So if it's funds that you're entitled to, like it's just your money and it's been there for a minute, you should be fine, just as long as you disclose it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
About the mixed credit. So
yes.
What if you have already you have a mix, but you paid off some stuff?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Like they said, they like to see a good mix. So like if you have a car note that's been paid off for 2 or 3 years, that's going to be on your report for 7 years. That just shows that you had really great payment over time. But yeah, just a good credit mix. The thing that you don't want to have is like only credit cards or only student loans. They'd be like, your credit life isn't that great. I mean, your payment might be great, but your credit mix, I misspoke. Your credit mix isn't that great.
You had
No, you're good.
talked about insurance.
Yep.
Now, what's the best insurance to get on a house?
You have to carry homeowner's insurance on the home, and that is going to cover the property for that, and that's going to be part of your package when you close. You have to show that you have homeowner's insurance. It's not like, with a vehicle, there's like liability and comprehensive. It's not like that. Homeowners is like, it covers the dwelling. Basically what it does is, if God forbid there were something drastic to happen, like a house fire, and then it would be the replacement value for the home, and then it can be rebuilt for that. And then the insurance has to be provided. It's called a declaration page, goes to the mortgager, like Educators Credit Union. They want to make sure that you have insurance because They're holding that property as collateral, and something were to happen to that property, they want to make sure that it's whole so their mortgage is not left lacking. Does that make sense?
Okay, so home buyers, that's just the name of the insurance?
It's homeowners insurance.
Homeowner
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with home buyers
I
insurance.
know,
Yeah.
that's what you said.
Yeah, no, homeowners insurance. Yeah.
So insurance, that's just, it doesn't matter what kind of insurance though, like State Farm.
I think you're saying company. It doesn't matter whatever company. It could be American Family. It could be State Farm. I don't think Geico does home insurance, but I might be wrong. I think they do. But yeah, whoever your insurance is with now. If you have like renter's insurance or car insurance, that's who I would reach out to.
Okay. I have another question.
Yeah, for sure.
I kind of got distracted. My mind had went somewhere else. I missed the part when you were talking about the cruises and stuff. You
Yeah.
had said that they don't look for that anymore. How do you?
No, they do. They do. That'll be in your inspection. So you have to make sure that it's up to code.
Okay.
So when the inspector came in, he said outdated electrical. And then when my insurance agent got a copy of the inspection report, because they want to know what they're insuring, right? They want to be like, is this a risky property or not? They said that's where they found it. It was in the inspector's report. Yep.
Yeah.
And you definitely want to make sure that most real estate agents have an inspector that they've used for a couple years, so you want to make sure that it's a reputable one. And sometimes don't expect to go on the inspection with them. They'll do the inspection on their own. They don't want you there with them because they'll probably crawling around the crawl spaces and getting under the porch and all that fun stuff. But when you're looking at homes and you're looking at homes, just kind of keep an eye out for stuff, right? You know, like where the people on the upkeep, were they good people with the upkeep? Does it look like the floors haven't been scrubbed in a while? You know, like little things like that can make a really, really, really big difference. I'm just going to touch a little bit on loans. We talked a little bit about this already. I like to make sure people are really super comfortable. All loans have these three elements. There's the principal, there's interest, and then there's the term. The principal is the amount of money that you're borrowing. Your interest, specifically in mortgage, is going to be how much you're paying each month to borrow that money. And then the term is going to be how long it is going to be out there for. If you're doing a mortgage and you're not really clear on any of these elements, you really need to speak up and ask. That's why I really recommend that you speak to your primary financial institution. There's the fixed or variable rate that we talked about. Usually the fixed rates are going to be for cars or homes, but not necessarily. The variable rate, which I talked about, could be a viable option for you as well. Your home loan is going to be a secured loan, right? Your home is what is the collateral, what is securing the property. So just make sure that you're keeping it in good upkeep and good condition. Also, one of the things to think about is how have the taxes been over the last couple years? A lot of times, city municipalities, you can go on and see how much the property taxes have increased over the last few years. If you just go, I think it's Treasurer, City of Kenosha, and you input a property's address, it pulls up the last couple years. So you can just kind of get an idea. Hey, is this like, wow, this property has gone up. In Racine, where I live, my property taxes have gone up 15% in the last 5 years. So yeah, right? I know I get the same feeling. I was like, man, whew. I mean, I love our home, but I was like, geez Louise. So think about those things. Again, just tips you can use. Pre-approved, we already talked about that. Credit scores generally for home buyers, you're going to need to be at least in the upper 600s, right? If you're below a 650, you're going to have some struggles getting pre-approved for a home. So it's not to say that it's impossible, but it's going to be, you're going to have to do a little bit of explaining. That was one of the things I wanted I made a note in my head, but I forgot to mention. Make sure that if something did happen in your credit life, that you can explain it, right? So let's say that they're looking at your credit history, you're okay with your credit score, but there's like an area of your life where you had a bunch of slow pays or late payments. Be able to explain that, right? We just went through a pandemic, right? Just say, hey, I was in the service industry during COVID and I wasn't working for 4 months. So I was behind on my bills. I'm caught up now, everything's good. But if you have any of those like areas of your credit life where stuff happened, don't act like nobody's gonna see it, right? Just be able to explain to the loan officer and be like, hey, when you pull my credit report, you're gonna see I had some slow payments. Here's what happened. For me, mine was my first credit card that I took out in college. When I bought my first home when I was 27, I jacked up my credit in college, guys. I really did. I had this one credit card I was like 4 months late on. And sure enough, the loan officer called me out on it. They're like, hey, what happened with this First Banking card of Omaha? It's like you were 4 months late. I mean, my credit had bounced back from then because it was a while after that. But I had to explain. I was like, I was a young college student. I had no idea what I was doing with credit, and I got behind. They were like, okay, So just be ready to answer some of those questions about your credit life. Talked about that. All right. I think that's it because we do the credit we have the credit presentation coming up pretty soon, don't we? Or is that? I thought we do. I can't remember. I'm sorry, Amy. Alrighty. So I know that dinner is now here. I'm going to be hanging out for a minute, but the number one thing that I want you to think about is just be prepared. It's an adventure owning a home. It's probably one of the most rewarding things that you can do in your life is home ownership. I really love the home that we live in. We'll probably retire there. But just make sure, again, that you're ready for the process. It is a process. I've never known anybody to find a home, get pre-approved on a home, and move into a home in 30 days. It's not like an apartment, folks. It's just not the timeline. Okay, so if you're in that mentality, in that headspace, get rid of that. Usually it's an anywhere from 2 to 3 month process, from getting pre-approved to finding the home that you really want, to getting all your documentations in order, and be ready for some letdown. You might get outbid, right? Again, it's just an offer to purchase. They don't have to accept it. So just be mindful on that you might not have a strong enough offer, and that's again why I recommend you work with a real estate agent. You can look at the Better Business Bureau for ratings on real estate agents. The internet is all over the place. Just make sure you're taking some of the comments with a grain of salt, and just make sure you're finding the agent that fits you the best. All right, any last minute questions for me at all? Yes. Yes. Yep. That was the other thing that really kind of shocked me is with condos, it is the same process. Condos are just a little bit different in the fact that you own conjointly with a bunch of other people that are in that building. So again, you have to really like the area and like the people. The other thing that a lot of neighborhoods now are having HOAs, home owners association, that can be, if you're buying a condo or you're going into an area that has an HOA, and it doesn't just have to be condos. Some like subdivisions now have HOAs. Be mindful. We've all seen the memes, right? That crazy HOA person that comes out with the ruler if your mums are too high. Read through the HOA contract, and sometimes there's a fee to be part of that HOA. Sometimes it's $250, $300 a month for some of these different neighborhoods. A friend of mine, a buddy of ours, him and his wife live out in Colorado, and they have a lovely home. And I was talking about it, and he's like, yeah, we really like it, but the HOA sucks. And that was the first time I knew that a neighborhood could have an HOA. And I was like, oh, what's going on there? He's like, yeah, we pay $600 a month for HOA fees. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, what are you getting for that? And it's just basically garbage removal and snow. I mean, it's in Colorado, so that's snow. But those are the kinds of things that can surprise you. And then, some HOAs have really weird rules. Like, you can't display any flags on the outside of your house. Your mailbox has to be a certain height. You can't leave your summer furniture on your front porch through the winter. You know, like little things like that you don't want to, get yourself in trouble. You got to really, look into that. Well, that's all I got, folks. So thank you all so much for coming. Hopefully you took a little bit of, thank you. Hopefully you got a little bit more down the rabbit hole of home ownership, and I really hope that you all become homeowners someday. Just kind of a passing thought that I will leave for you. When you get to own a home, if you're in that situation, think about, we covered this in our estate planning, think of like end of life kind of stuff, right? Like, so if you own a home and something were to happen to you, God forbid, who gets the home? Do you have a will, right? You don't want that to be subject of probate or any of that stuff. Be very clear. In my example, I've used this before. I had purchased my first home on my own, and then I bought the 2 rentals on my own. And then when I got married, I added my spouse onto the title, so it would be a seamless transfer if, God forbid, anything were to happen to me. So just make sure that's one step, but just making sure you have your house in order. Get the pun. In case anything were to happen to you when you own a home. All right, that's it, folks. Yeah, absolutely.
So you said before the real estate agent is not going to want to really mess with you until you get a pre-approved letter.
In this area,
The pre-approval letter is coming from
your financial institution. Yep.
So that one would be first.
Like your bank or your credit union, yeah. They might show you some homes, or they might say, hey, check out our website, and if you want to view some, but they're not going to, some of them, they're busy and they might not even want, they'll ask you. Most of them will be very blunt, say, well, where are you at in the process? Some of them are connected with mortgage brokers. Again, I recommend you go to your primary financial institution. They know you best, right? You don't want to deal with somebody that's like out of town, just trying to get the deal done. Yep, good questions. All right, well, thanks, folks.